Something interesting tonight, as I posted on X, Cam Cook could outproduce the running backs ranked ahead of him. And I wasn't trying to be reckless. After that post, the West Virginia coach reached out to me and basically said, "You are more right than you realize." And I really got into an awesome conversation. Let's explain exactly what that was all about.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host here. Welcome back in the Locked On West Virginia, baby, where we're talking Mountaineer football tonight, and excited to be doing so. Look, I am happy today. I just wanted to talk some Mountaineer football, and thankfully something popped in at the last minute, which I wasn't sure if it was going to happen or not. So grateful to be doing it and all that. So, okay, let's calm down a little bit here, Paul. This episode of Locked On West Virginia going to be brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Episode going to be brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, where we're talking about our friends from Mazda, where you can move and be moved. And look, if you want to be Mazda, if you want a Mazda vehicle, you know where to go find one at your Mazda dealership. So, okay. Thanks for making us your first listen and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're talking about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. Thanks to Raven in the chat, WVU for us in the chat, Drumwolf in the chat, and Doris Workman. Thank you guys so much from Dingus, West Virginia, my hometown. I always love to give Doris a shout out. So thank you so much for being here, and let's dive straight into this subject here. So I was aggravated earlier, right? I was looking online, and I was hoping to find at least one West Virginia player in the top 100 of ESPN's rankings, just looking for content, right? I mean, that's my job, right? I'm looking for anything to react to talk with you guys with and all that, and to try to keep it fresh because it's definitely a slower part of the year right now. And I came across an article of ESPN. It's basically the ESPN's top 100 transfer portal players for 2026. And so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 running backs listed on it, right? Not one is Cam Cook. Not one. We'll just talk about that in a minute. I thought the last one was Wayne Knight. The actual last one was Adam Mohammed. Adam Mohammed had 716 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2 seasons as a backup. That's right. In 2 seasons as a backup, Adam Mohammed had 716 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he's ahead of Cam Cook. The insanity. Wayne Knight was the one I used, though, and he had 1,300 yards rushing last year at James Madison, and I even said about him, I said, let's check the record next year since he's at UCLA and Cam Cook's here at West Virginia. Let's check the record and see where Cam Cook stands when it comes to production. Because I think Cam Cook is going to be better than most everybody on that list come next year, barring any injury. And so I kind of went on about my day, and then I got a text. I saw your Cam Cook post, basically, right? And I was like, okay, what's up, man? I thought maybe that I had, upset somebody, right? But he made it really clear to me. This wasn't like a bad take. He said they could have had, this is exactly what he said to me. They could have had multiple high-end backs. They evaluated a lot of options, and they chose Cam Cook on purpose over all those other options, and here's why. Number one was the Rick Trickett endorsement. And this might be the biggest thing I was told because Rick Trickett signed off on him, right? And if you know anything about West Virginia football, you know Rick Trickett doesn't rubber stamp anything, much less a running back. So that endorsement alone tells you what kind of runner that Cam Cook is. And on tape, he is decisive. He's tough. He's reliable. And he's definitely built for real football, so because you look at what he did last year, he's a true workhorse, right? And so the staff said, they view him as a 250 plus carry back if need be. That's not theoretical. That's not if everything goes right. Cam Cook is a guy who can handle the volume. He can finish the games. He can take punishment and still be effective late. That's not a change of pace guy. That's not a third down back. That's the foundation of your running game. And I think at the end of the day, you get a 3-down running back, and I think that's where the rankings miss, because Cook is going to destroy on the inside concepts. He's going to protect the quarterback, and he can stay on the field on third down if you need him to. That means he doesn't come off the field and touches, for other people will be diminished if he's on his game. You know what I mean? Other guys are going to get touches, and we're going to talk about, because we went on to talk about the room as a whole, which we will talk about that too. But, the coach told me this directly. He said he does what we want to do as a staff very well. And that's everything, right? There's no flash. There's no social media run-ins. There's nothing with this kid, just execution. He just works really hard. He said he's got work ethic, and he's humble. And to me, this part probably matters more than some other fans realize too, because like I said, I was told that he was an extremely hard worker, very coachable, and very humble. So those guys get fed, man. Like, those are the kind of guys that Rich Rod is going to tab and say, yep, captain, yep, you're going to be getting a lot of touches, whatever. And so this guy's earned the staff's confidence already because of that Jacksonville State connection. I think that can't go understated here, right? And so that makes me truly excited when you start to look at the Cam Cook role for next season. And you know what? He can be left off a top 100 transfers list. It matters not at all. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't. He's going to get a running back one workload. He's going to be an early down tone setter for West Virginia. He's going to be our short yardage trust back as well. And I think he's going to be the finisher late in games. When we talk about pulling people in the deep waters, that's exactly what Cam Cook is. He's that guy that when you get into deep waters, do you still want to tackle him? Do you still want to chase him around? Because I think absolutely Cam Cook has that kind of potential. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I think Cam Cook has got, the potential to run anywhere from between 11 to 1,500 yards this year and be an offense-defining piece for an elite running game. And so, went on to talk more about other backs too, though. And when coaches talk that, but one last thing, man, when a coach is talking to me so confidently about just one player, it gets me really excited, because I have my opinions, but I don't know what everybody else is always saying or thinking. I always wonder, like, whenever they pick somebody, I wonder how many of the staff agreed on this player. Was there anybody that really doesn't believe in him? Or this is one that I think that is unanimous amongst probably the fans too, but also, the staff. You couple that with the fact that you going out and you got nothing but starters at other places. Are they all Power 4? No, they're not. But you did get one Power 4 guy that's really good. And you went out and got first team all conference guys, and you went out and got guys that have never given up a sack, and you went out and got a guy from UConn who had one of the best running games in the country last year. And you start to look at it and you're like, holy cow, man. Like, and then you got the incumbents that are coming back on this offensive line. I haven't been this excited about our offensive line since 2024. That offensive line didn't hold up because of multiple factors, but I mean, it was still really good. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be, right? Even with Frazier and company on the line, like it wasn't Frazier's fault necessarily, but I don't know if it was the style or what, but I mean, I would have loved to have seen what they could have done with that offensive line in this group. So we got to talking about that. We also got to talking about the room, and because that was my next question. Like, while I had him, I was going to ask, Because, like, yeah, I may have a couple numbers, but like I don't ever use them ever. I've got Rick Trickett's number, and I've still never texted him. I'm scared too. Remember, you guys remember that guy I had on here that had Rick Trickett on his show and all that stuff? Like, I was able to get Rick Trickett's number from him, and to this day, I'm still scared to text him. I wouldn't know what to say. So, sometimes you get numbers, and sometimes, doesn't mean I'm getting a bunch of intel or anything. I'm not trying to say that from anybody, but when you do this job for years, like I have now, you get lucky enough to get to introduce to people sometimes, and that's all this is. And like, there's on the basketball staff, there's a guy, and um, we he sends me stuff of like players they're recruiting, or I mean, not that they're recruiting, but they've already recruited. Like, he sends me Miles Sadler stuff all the time. He's like, look what he did, this week or whatever. So, like, it's pretty cool because they probably want me to talk about it, but yeah. So point being is we got into another, while I had him, because I never usually reach out and I'm always nervous to, I was like, you know what, might as well start asking some questions about, the other pieces in the room. So that's what I did. So we'll go to break really quick, and we'll come back and I'll talk about the other pieces in the room that we started talking about. It was a pretty cool conversation. We'll be right back. And we're talking about our friends at Mazda. Enjoy this quick video from Mazda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. The WNBA has released its 2026 schedule, featuring a 44-game regular season beginning on Friday, May 8th. The league's historic 30th season includes expansion teams Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo, with opening weekend highlights such as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever hosting Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings, and a rematch of the 2025 finals between the Aces and the Mercury. In college hoops, South Carolina handed Vanderbilt its first loss of the season with a dominant 103-74 win. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
My God, dude. Sorry, guys. While that video was playing, my cat, you ever seen a cat jump straight up in the air and like, I don't know what scared her, but like where I'm sitting, like all I can see is my computer screen, right? And all of a sudden above my computer screen, I see a cat look like it's on a pogo stick and almost hit my ceiling that's like 8 feet high. I'm like, what the heck did he, and she just jumped straight from the floor like something tried to get her. I don't know what happened, man. That was crazy. Now she's drinking some water, so I don't know what happened, but animals, man. I'm going to answer a question in the chat. Mr. John wants to know, why am I scared to reach out to coaches? I don't know. I think it's probably because I don't want to overwhelm. You know what I mean? Because like I like to save it for when I really need it. And we're not best friends, so it's not like I can text every day. So, it's like, yeah, I was given this number, and yeah, we've had a couple conversations, but it's not like I'm getting intel from this guy all the time or anything. So, this felt like a pretty cool invitation to like maybe text more, or maybe we will, but I don't know. I've learned as I've gone along doing this job that you can wear out your welcome with people, because I was so enthusiastic early in my career. Like, I just wanted to be good at this so bad. And I'm always like I would overshare and be like, I made this mistake. I would tell them, like, I made this mistake. I know I made this mistake, but how can I get better from it? And they didn't even know about it. They're like, oh, you did. So I learned as I've gone, but that's really all it is. I just try not to wear out my welcome. All right. So let's get to the second portion of this one here, because I think you guys will like this. I really wanted to bring into, like I said, usually when the coaches talk competently about one back, it's usually an indictment against the other pieces in the room because I wasn't hearing anything about anybody else. In this case, it's because the room is actually strong around him, though, because he's obviously the only piece that's proven anything at the Power Four and, Group of Five level. Remember, Cam Cook was really good at TCU as well before an injury, and was on pace to be TCU's running back of the future. So that, good for us if that happened, but I mean, bad for him that it did. So that brings us to Amari Latimer. Of course, that's going to be the first guy I ask about, right? And, I've been very fortunate to meet Amari Latimer and have him on the show, and obviously, speak with his dad and his mom and all that, and trying to get his brother to come on the show here pretty soon. I'm sure I can make that happen. I just haven't pushed for it. But, the thing that I was told about Amari Latimer, I guess that I can share, because there were some other things that they want to surprise people with. But he is such a humble, well-spoken, good kid. Like he's almost like, you almost feel like you want to shield him from the world. Not that he's doesn't know anything about the world. Obviously he does. But when I met him, I was so shocked by how sweet of a spirit he had about himself. It's like, man, how do you turn that on when you get on the football field and become what he becomes? Because he's a totally different person on the field, and he's been extremely impressive in workouts. So he's another one that has impressed a lot of people from his willingness to just really get after it. Obviously, they're not talking about, much positional stuff that I know of. Now, they can work that out. I think they get assignments maybe, or they work that stuff out on their own, but they definitely haven't, I don't know if they're working with their coach or not until the summer, but no, it's not a question I really ask. But, obviously just the attributes, he was like, he's another one that could potentially fit into there as the short yardage back for this year, because he's an extremely physical runner, right? And he runs behind his pads really well. He's always finishing forward on tape if you watch, and he played at the highest level of Georgia, which is obviously climbing the ranks up there to get with Florida and others. Like, it's right almost there. And then he does the dirty work well, man. He's just one of those guys. And he's actually a pretty good compliment to Cam Cook, although they are very similar in a lot of ways too. So they're a different style, but the same kind of mindset, because I do think Amari Latimer is more – Cam Cook is probably more of a – at least at this point, like I like to consider him like a Le'Veon Bell type, right? Who is extremely patient, waiting for openings and creases, and then it just kind of explodes through them. And Amari Latimer is so gifted. He can do it all, right? He can make guys miss. He can run by guys. He can run through guys. And he's kind of the entire package, whereas Cam Cook has one or two things he does extremely well. And the things he does well makes him so dangerous. So, it's going to be interesting. But the other guy that we obviously talked about, and there are others in the room, obviously Christopher Talley's one, Sir Paul Cheeks is one, but it was Boswell. And I had been talking about Boswell the last couple of days on the show. So obviously I wanted to know about him. And, if I didn't show you guys this, I don't think I have, but Boswell ran 100 meters in 10 flat. He put it on his X page. So the kind of speed you're getting in that situation is next level. And, they feel like what they're getting with him is somebody that they can run a lot of two back sets out of with. They said this is what I was told. They feel like he's a guy that they can, let's say you've got Cam Cook and Boswell both in the backfield. You can motion Boswell out into the slot, or Cam Cook's such a good receiver, you can motion him out into the slot. And it's one of those things where it gives you just more options in the running game. You know what I mean? Like you can run the inside zone to Cam Cook and then run an option play with Boswell and be extremely dangerous, right? Or you can run a fake sweep with Boswell and then run the inside pitch to Cook, right? So like there's so many things you can do with Boswell in the game because he's so dynamic. So because he's by far the most dynamic guy we might have, maybe on the roster. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it's going to be close with him. And he's, obviously he's going to have to be able to take some of the punishment and all that. And that's one thing you worry about. And I don't know, like, I was told they might ask him to gain a little weight, but I don't think it's going to take away from what he does well, which is run. And if you watch him at all, like, one thing that excites you about Boswell is this offensive line. They're expecting once they get their 5 because you went out and spent $1 million on an offensive line coach. So, when you do that, you're expecting him to get your offensive line in shape, and Rick Trickett's going to do that. So when it gets put together, especially after those first 2 games where you should win, you should start to gel hopefully a little bit by Virginia. And a guy like Boswell is a game-changing kind of back that, if you give him a crease against a team like Virginia, all of a sudden he's gone for 80, right? And it's exciting. It really is exciting. So, I had a great conversation. I wanted to ask about all the players, trust me. Like I really did, but like he was like, okay, man, see you later kind of thing, right? Like he initiated that. So I was like, okay, guess we're done. But yeah, so I mean, obviously a lot of Cam Cook, and compliments to Boswell and Latimer too. Those are just, the people I wanted to talk about. So like I said, my prediction is this. And then when you look at the list of backs on the ESPN list, you've got Hollywood Smothers. I have no problem at all with him being ranked ahead of Cam Cook. Justice Haynes from Michigan. I have no problem with him being ranked ahead of Cook, although he wasn't as productive. Like if you go watch Justice Haynes on tape, okay, it's pretty damn obvious that he is really talented. He just got hurt. He had 857 yards, 10 touchdowns, and was averaging 7 yards a carry before his injury. So he only played 7 games. I mean, so if he would have played all the games, he would have had 1,300 yards or something. So, I mean, yeah. At Michigan, 1,300 yards is better than 1,800 yards at Jackson State, right? I mean, I'll admit that. Here's where I have a small problem. Why is Caleb Hawkins ahead of Cam Cook? Legitimately. Yes, he had 1,800 yards from scrimmage, 3rd in FBS, 63 broken tackles, which led the country. I know what he can do after contact. I watched his tape for Oklahoma State, locked on Oklahoma State. No problem with him being ranked on this list. No problem with him really being ahead of Cam Cook either. I get that he's a special to what he did as a freshman. Very special. But why is Cam Cook overlooked here? Like, if you want to say playing in the American Conference is tougher than playing in the Sun Belt, the Conference USA, I'll give you that. It is. It's just a miniature step up. It's kind of like the difference between, playing in the SEC or Big Ten and the Big 12, right? Obviously, we're all Division I, but there's a little bit of difference, just a little bit, especially in the Big Ten now. Raleek Brown, talented as hell. I don't necessarily have a problem with him being ahead of Cam Cook either. Not a huge problem with it, although, I mean, Look, Raleek Brown, if he's healthy, is as talented as a running back as there is out there. So you're not going to hear me argue about that very much. But here's where I start to get like what? Quintrevion Wisner, obviously really talented guy. 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, he was really good at Texas. 13 All-SEC guy. I wouldn't consider him better than Cam Cook. I watched his tape. I mean, he's good. Very good. But so is Cam Cook. Wayne Knight, who is just an explosive ball of energy. 5'7", very, very, very much Noel Devine vibes out of him. All Sun Belt guy, 1,300 yards, 2,000 all-purpose, 10 touchdowns. He had 40 catches. And then you got Adam Mohammed, who went from Washington to Cal, 716 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2 seasons as a backup. You've got him ranked ahead of Cam Cook? There's no freaking way. So what's that new app they got called? Kashi or whatever it's called? Like, give me an app. Give me something to put my money where my mouth is, and I'll put $500 right now that Cam Cook outgains as long as he stays healthy. That's the big thing. That would be my only caveat. But I will say that he outgains. I would say he outgains everybody on this list. Maybe outside of Hawkins, but I don't even know Hawkins. I don't know how they're going to do at Oklahoma State in year one. But I mean, it's the same offense, and they upgraded the offensive line. Their offense should be pretty good, but I don't know. I'm going to go. I would say that I think Cam Cook can outgain everybody on this list. Maybe not Hollywood Smothers. I don't know how much they're going to run it with him. Hollywood Smothers is the most talented running back in the country. I agree. But, I still don't. Production's a different thing, right? Production has to do with the offense you're in, the skill set you have, and basically how much you're, by the numbers, which we're going to run it more than most teams. So I'm already going to have an advantage. You know what I mean? So that's my thought process behind that. But overall, like, you can't tell me Cam Cook's not a better player than 3 or 4 of those guys, especially the last guy. He's ran for 700 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2 years. And you're trying to tell me that Cam Cook, who ran for almost 2,000 yards last year, is worse? Get out of here. It's just the crazy. Like, if you look at the logos behind all these players, all these guys, Hollywood Smothers, Texas. Justice Haynes came from Michigan. Caleb Hawkins obviously was going to Oklahoma State, and the only reason he's on the list is because he was the number 2 ranked portal back for so long. Raleek Brown, Arizona State to Texas. Quintrevion Wisner from Texas to Florida State. Wayne Knight, UCLA. Adam Muhammad, Washington. Like, there's a logo, either Big Ten or SEC, in almost all of these except one. So, that's why I don't take it too seriously. How can you? It's ridiculous. You can't have a list with 6 running backs on it last year and tell me Cook's not on that list. So I'll quit griping about it. We'll go to break. We'll come back and we'll talk about – I want to look around the roster, and we're going to look at one more position group this week or this episode, and did it improve or did it not improve next? And we're talking about our friends at FanDuel on this one. And why won't we talk about our friends at FanDuel? Because right now with FanDuel, usually we talk about $5 is going to make you come holla. But it's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get on the action for FanDuel before the NFL season comes officially to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. That's right. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, Stats turn to storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from the kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, you can bet just $5. It'll make you come holla, and you get $200 in bonus bets. That's if you win that first $5 bet. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. That's right. It's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com, where you too can get started. All right. We are back here with Locked On West Virginia. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Make sure you like the video, please. Subscribe if you're new around here and all that. I would really appreciate it so much, guys. As you guys are just awesome, man. You guys have done a good job of supporting the show during a slower period during the year. Last year, this time of year, we just had Rich Rod hired. Everything was all new and exciting, and we were getting a different portal guy every week. Obviously, the second portal window opened in February, so we had that. I wish there was a second portal window this year, but there's not, and that's okay. I appreciate that, Raven. Don't forget to smash the like button and turn on post notifications so you are notified when I go live. Yeah, make sure your notifications are turned on. I hear a lot of people telling me, like, hey, it doesn't tell me when you go live. If you turn that on, the bell, click the bell, I think it is, it'll let you know when I go live, and that way you can just click right on. It's like a notification to your phone. All right, real quick, let's look at a position group here in the offense, or defense, or somewhere. Let's just figure. We'll just look at a random one. We've got the wide receiver room. We've got the tight end room. We've looked at the offensive line room. We've looked at the defensive line room. We've looked at the edge room. We have not looked at linebackers yet, corners, or safeties. So, and I'll tell you what, special teams got a lot better. Jack Cassidy comes in as a monster. If he can get his accuracy right, he can be an NFL guy. But, I mean, he kicked as far away as 72 yards. Nate Flower will kick the short ones, I think, and Jack Cassidy will kick the long ones. And then you brought in the number one portal punter in the country in Brian Hansen. So that's extremely exciting to see. And you still got McGuire, Moss, and Caden Seller at long snap. So you're doing really good there. If you want to look at I'll go with the wide receiver room. I think that's a room that deserves a little bit of love, because there's a lot to it, right? You got Charlie Hannafin, Greg Wilfried, Robert Oliver, Malachi Thompson, Armoni Weaver, Cyrus Trawl, John Nider, Keon Hutchins, Kedrick Triplett, Teron Francis, Prince Strawn, Jaden Bray, as long as he is able to come back, and DJ Epps. That's the room. That's the entire room. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 guys at the wide receiver room. And we can include Josh Sapp in there if you want to count receiving targets that we're expecting, along with Ryan Ward. So that's potentially 15 receiving targets, along with we've got a couple running backs that can really receive it too. So that's potentially 17 receiving targets. I think that West Virginia can legitimately have. Maybe they'll have a couple more than that I'm not considering, but let's say 17 or 18 for now. And that's pretty good as far as numbers go. Like, you've got a lot of targets, but are they any of them any good? That's another great question. Josh Sapp, I need more tape on Josh Sapp. I really do. He only had 12 catches last year, but like, whenever you look at it, he looks like he's much more athletic than, I don't know if Clemson just didn't use him a lot or what, but I mean, maybe he's one of those guys that can be a lot better than, his numbers shown, because that does happen from time to time, especially at a place like Clemson, where they probably got an embarrassment of riches at tight end. I think Ryan Ward can take a big jump up this year. He is a good receiving tight end, and he's got a chance to be really good as long as he continues to hone his skills as a receiver. Cam Ball is a big target, and I like him in the red zone, but he's a blocking tight end. So DJ Epps is a guy that I think can be a number 2 or number 3 receiver. Last year at Troy, he had a pretty good year. I think he caught around 40 balls, maybe 50 for 500 or 600 yards or whatever the number was. It wasn't much more than that, and a few touchdowns. But he is a really athletic guy. He's one of those guys you throw it to in space and he can make guys miss. I like him a lot. I think he's got talent. Obviously, Jaden Bray can be your number 1 receiver next year if you can just stay healthy. I mean, he looked so good, guys. He looked so good early last year, 7 catches in the first game, and looked like he was on pace to be really good. And then, unfortunately, he had the same foot injury 2 years in a row. That's not promising. Prince Strawn, he got hurt at USC. But if you go turn on the Boise tape, a 6'5" monster of a receiver. And he was down to USC and Miami for a reason last year when he came out of the portal. I told the famous story. He was at West Virginia in the hotel visiting West Virginia, not this year, but last year, when Miami called him in the middle of the night, or maybe it was USC, and said, hey, get on an Uber and go to the airport. And he did at 2 a.m. And Aiden Bustle, the Tennessee guy, the guy that transferred him from Tennessee last year that got sick and didn't get to play at West Virginia, told me the next day, he was like, man, my roommate, or I don't know if he was a roommate or next across the room from him or whatever, but he was like, man, Prince Strawn or whatever, left at 2:00 in the morning and got in an Uber all of a sudden. I'm like, wow. So it's just crazy how he ended up at West Virginia anyways. But if you go look at his Boise State stuff, he had 500 yards, something like that with them. So, and he was a great red zone target. Obviously, he can be really good. Teron Francis could be your number 1 receiver. I mean, he could also be a guy that doesn't factor in at all. So it's like talent-wise, he should be your number 1 or number 2 guy. But he has so little experience, I don't know what to expect from him. I expect he'll play a lot. Personally, I think he'll probably go out there as a starter, and they're going to try to make him work because you need him to work. Then you get to the really interesting ones, Kedrick Triplett and Keon Hutchins. Those are both guys that could potentially start. Keon Hutchins was the number 1 JUCO wideout. Kedrick Triplett was the number 7. And West Virginia got them both. Super talented, both of them. Both have great speed. They add speed to the room. John Nider is a very similar to, I've said this before, he's in that vein of Hudson Clement, or trying to think of a better comp. Hudson Clement's a pretty good comp for him. Really tough, hard-nosed, makes tough catches, can get vertical, but he's not going to burn you. But he could be a huge contributing factor for us next year. I do believe that. Cyrus Trawl, we expect him to make a jump. He's an elite route runner. I said that all last year. If you go turn on his Youngstown State tape, he absolutely dusts people in route running situations. I don't know why he didn't play last year. Maybe it was a strength thing. I'll text him actually after the show and ask him. Armoni Weaver played some last year, but, he's a guy that it was a freshman. He's only 5'8", and, he's a smaller guy. So we'll have to see what happens with him, but he can contribute maybe in the slot this year. Then you got Malachi Thompson, who obviously from West Virginia. We want to see him do well. Robert Oliver is a speedster from Niceville, Florida, that I really like. I don't know if he can. He was a different name, by the way, if you didn't know. But yeah, Robert Stith, that was his name before he changed it, or he took somebody else's last name, or I'm not exactly sure. But he's a freshman as well that I can really think can contribute. But there's so many guys on this roster. You get to Greg Wilfred. There's tape out there of him at just absolutely crushing people in the slot. He's a super interesting one, and he's from that Edna Carr team that was one of the best high school teams in all of the nation. That's why he knows Teron Francis. That's why he knows John Smith, our quarterback, et cetera. And then Charlie Hannafin, who I think will probably not play this year unless he's just somehow, some way, you know, an elite player, and we don't know it yet. You never know. Some freshmen just break out. You don't know why it happens, but it happens. I think this room has a chance to be 3 or 4 times better than last year's room. I do believe that. There's a lot of guys on here that were pretty productive at their last spot. There's also a lot of upside with like Teron Francis and guys like that. So it just depends on what happens. And it also depends on who the quarterback is. But either way, I mean, I think we've been told here recently, like Mike Hawkins is a really good quarterback that can throw it around. According to the people from Oklahoma, I didn't know that because the tape's limited, but I'll take their word for it. If he is indeed a throwing guy and can throw it as well as Scotty, then this race is over, right? If he does struggle to throw it, which I'm not saying he does, in this offense for whatever reason, then Scotty has an advantage. But, with this receiving room, it intrigues me. It really does. So, all right, guys. I appreciate you guys for being in here. Got to run. I'm going to try to get another video out tonight on something. We'll figure out what. It's tough, but we're trying to pump out 2 a day, even during the off season for you guys, just so you got something to talk about, something to watch. Thanks for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen. If you could do me a favor, like the video before you leave, subscribe if you're new to the channel, please, and share the video out. That helps more than anything. And I'm asking as a favor, like if you don't mind, really quick, if you'll just copy and paste the link, the YouTube link in your bar, or if you'll just click share on your screen, there'll be a button underneath the video where you can share, copy the link, and just share it to X or Facebook or somewhere else. And I always say this too, because it's true. You always think somebody else is going to do it, but trust me, like maybe 3 people will do it. So if you don't care, just be the one that does it for me, because it helps me a lot. Especially a lot of my regulars that are in here. If you don't care, please do that. Like John and Raven and everybody that is in here all the time, and Drum Wolf and all you guys know who you are. I don't have to name everybody, but because sharing it out on the social media to your people that's all I really ever ask for. I'm just trying to grow. All right, guys, I'll try to make it back tonight as long as I can. I've got to get on there and research and see if there's anything out there to talk about. I do have one thing that I could talk about, but it's very controversial, that Pac-Man Jones talked about this last week, but I don't know how it will be received. So that's the problem with that. We'll talk about it. We'll see if we can talk about it. I'll do a poll on it, see what people think maybe. Until then, guys, thanks for making this your first listen, and we'll talk to you later. 2 Country Roads.